So of course, here we are talking about workplace and how workplace deals with this diversity. When we look to the research we have three main aspects that researchers look into about diversity. So the first one is the academic background, the professional experiences, and the type of function that someone has in an organization. The second one is the values and personality of different people. And the third one, the one that interests us the most, is the social demographic characteristics of people. There are many differences about these attributes. So the first set of attributes, the academic background and the professional experiences, is related to the group members' competencies and areas of discipline, and how do they really deal in their work and how they perform in their job. The second one, which is values and personality, relates to differences of opinion, worldview, and types of personality. So researchers study how different people are able to maintain relationships and work with each other in groups. The third set, which is our main point of interest here, is the one related to visible social demographic characteristics such as gender, race, and how we deal with this diversity of people in terms of cohesion, affection, and cooperation among groups. So the whole idea here is to talk about this third set of attributes and not underestimate the negative impact that this third set of characteristics has on belonging to a workplace, or in our case, to our firm. So what we usually say is that characteristics such as gender, race, sexual orientation do not talk about our competencies. Do we say competencies? Do you understand that, Fred?
Yeah, maybe it's skills.
Yeah. Skills. Do not talk about our professional skills. Neither about the ability that we have to work in teams, our management skills, problem solving, or decision making under pressure. But usually women, transgender people, people of color, gay, lesbians, and bisexual people continue to have fewer opportunities in the workplace than people with equal or less ability. So here we are going to look at these social demographic characteristics that we have and that affect our belonging to our workplace. When we talk about inclusion, it's a completely different thing. So it describes a more comprehensive, multidimensional process that goes far beyond hiring people from diverse groups. So when we say that a workplace is diverse, we are referring to a workplace that has different people with different characteristics in all three sets of attributes that we referred, but especially on the social demographic aspects. And when we look at inclusion in the job market, we realize that belonging to a certain group can put someone at a disadvantage as early as during the recruiting process. So this can happen for various reasons. So probably the first one would be conscious and unconscious bias of the people who are recruiting or creating the job post. Other reasons for that is just the prejudice that people has related to other people. And we need to look at how these barriers can be overcome and how people with diverse profiles can be hired and integrate themselves within a workplace. So, in order to assess how people feel included or how a workplace is in fact inclusive, we could ask ourselves a few questions that I have here. So A few of them. What decision-making power does the person have within their work group and their organization? To what extent are they encouraged to participate in relevant group activities and decisions? Do management and colleagues share important information about organizational process with them? Do they have access to a comprehensive and relevant social network within the organization? These are just a few of the questions, but they are all related to the right to participate. So as a human rights lawyer, I truly believe that we have to encourage people to participate. We have to make them able to participate in formal and informal process that affect their lives and their day by day at work. So the main thing about inclusion is how people are participating in both formal and informal process, so we can foster a sense of personal and subjective sense of belonging. Having said that, we go to intersectionality, which is the third main topic that we are going to address here today. And intersectionality is a concept created by Professor Kimberly Crenshaw. At the time, she was at Columbia University. Nowadays, she's at UCLA. She's a lawyer, and she has a TED talk that I recommend a lot that you see about intersectionality, which is really didactic about how this concept was created and its main use. But here we are going to understand intersectionality as the association of multiple systems of subordination, or how do they come together, how do different forms of discrimination come together to affect the same person. So we have discrimination systems such as gender or sexual orientation that overlap and intersect, creating complex intersections in which 2, 3, or 4 axes converge, which results in multiple or overlapping discriminations. So the whole idea here is to look at the importance of looking at intersectionality, how it affects people so they can truly be part of our workplaces. I hope I was clear, and I will be open
really
here
clear,
for questions.
Laura. And by the way,
That's
I
good.
was following the chat while we were talking. So Doug Ferguson, he wants a copy of the questions that you mentioned. Maybe someone
Good.
can post on the chat. And someone also asked for the name of the TED Talk speaker again, so they can later watch on
Can
YouTube.
I put it on the chat?
But yeah, the
does
chat
it go
on
to
the
everybody?
Pathable platform. And by the way, I forgot to mention this to you guys. So if you have any questions, feel free to send it on the post tab on the Pathable platform. I have it open on another screen here, and I'll be sure to forward the questions to one of the speakers. Okay. So all great material, Laura, and I think that yes, those questions, they bring us to this place where we can question ourselves, what are we doing to promote more diversity and inclusion in the workplace, especially towards intersectional people. And another way to provoke this kind of reflection is through data. So I'll send it to Luanda here to expose the main results and numbers of a research that has done over harassment, violence, and discrimination against diversity and sexual orientation in the workplace. So Luanda, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you show the slides for us?
Yes.
All right. This is one of the most relevant data from the first Latin America survey on sexual diversity, harassment, violence, and discrimination in the workplace. This survey was completed by 1,584 people and demonstrates the realities experienced by LGBTIQ plus people. The survey was carried out by many organizations, like you can see, and as well as analyzing the delta from a regional perspective. Next one, please, Freddy. Yeah. Okay. One of the main findings that 37.2% acknowledge have experienced any of these situations, violence and or discrimination in the last year due to their sexual orientation and or gender identity. You can show the number. This number raised to more than 7% when asked about a list of experience lived in the last year, among which are symbolic violence, institutional violence, sexual violence, harassment, and physical violence. In this sense, MSN of Uruguay analyzed that it is essential to make situations of discrimination visible, and that they can leave the silence. Next. When the question was about harassment, violence, and discrimination by LGBTIQ plus situation, lesbians said 77.6%, gay people 68.9%, bisexual 77.8%, trans 89.1%, intersex 84.5%, queer and others 78.7%. Kinds, I'm not seeing. The kinds of violence by LGBTIQ plus population, most of people said that feel symbolic violence. Next slide, please. In the workplace, when the question was, in the workplace, did you feel any bad feedback or difficult after you standing you are LGBTIQ plus person, or you when you came out expressing sexual orientation and or gender identity? 12.8% said yes, I came out and that brought me problems in the workplace. 20.3% said I didn't came out because I was afraid of a bad feedback or consequence. In 12%, I did came out for another reasons, not declared other reasons, because they think it's not necessary, 39.7%, personal reason, 38.1%, other 15.9%, family or couple 6.3%. Next one, please. When the question was, in the last year of your work, did you suffer harassment, violence, or discrimination because you are lesbian? 41.1% said yes, gay 31.4%, bisexual 34.9%, trans 61.4%, intersex 50%, queer and others 43.2%. Next one, please. This study points out that the main people responsible for such situations are peers from the same team, 33%, and bosses, 23.8%. Furthermore, these types of violence are carried out by both men and women. One of the fundamental purposes offered by this regional exercise is to continue showing that there is a long way to go in terms of equality and sexual diversity within the labor field in the region. The next one, please. Of the people who suffered some of act of violence, 86+3% did not report it. When the origins are investigated, three causes are evident because the person did not consider it relevant to file the complaint, because there is no confidence in the organization's mechanisms for making the complaint, or for fear of replies or negative consequences that report people may receive. since for Colombia analysis that inclusion in labor discriminations, but be addressed not only for how many activities a company performs. The voice of people who identify themselves as LGBTQ+, who are the main recipients of corporation policies and culture, must be listened to. These delta are fundamental research for companies to be more worried for the results of their policies. The next one, please. Many organizations are working on inclusion and diversity policies with focus on the LGBTQ+ population. 35% of the response state that the workspaces have policies or programs on this topic. Only 25% feel represented by them, having delta that saying that experience of LGBTQ+ people will help us to promote the organization carry out more effective and equate programs to eliminate these situations that value with doing more value for human rights. On the other hand, UNAIDS states that the information and the findings obtained from this collection effort will contribute to generate queer recommendations that help to reduce the stigma and discrimination of the LGBTIQ+ population in the work environment in Latin American region. That's it.
Okay. So Luanda, there was one question here from someone, I think Milo Herbert, asking if the stats are for Brazil or Latin America.
Latin America.
Latin America.
Latin America.
So this is all very informative. Thank you for sharing. And we can see there's a lot of work to be done still, right? People are still not comfortable enough in either coming out or making a formal complaint whenever they face discrimination in the workplace. So this goes to show that there is lots of work in the D&I front to be done in Latin American companies. So that's, again, as I said before, it's through data that we can reflect and maybe readjust our positions. Okay, so let's jump to our special guests now. So we have a couple of video testimonials of ways of raising awareness to intersectionality to promote workplace equality. So we're going to hear from Paulo Furley. Paulo, he works at Thomson Reuters. So he's a graduate student of human rights, social responsibility, and global citizenship from PUC Rio Grande do Sul in Brazil. He has over 10 years in human resources department experience, and half of them have been focusing on diversity and inclusion projects such as LGBT plus inclusion in all levels in companies and procedures and policies related to disabled people. So currently, Paulo is part of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee at Thomson Reuters as co-chair of the Disability Employer Network in Brazil. He's a gay, cis white man, and will be sharing his experience first. Then we'll hear from Vitor Martins. Vitor is an administrator from Fundação Getúlio Vargas in Brazil and psychologist in training, and also holds a master's in psychology from the Federal University of Santa Catarina. As a researcher, they have studied strategies for combating racism implemented by private companies in Brazil. Vitor is currently a diversity and inclusion specialist at Nubank, which coincidentally or not, is one of the very first Brazilian unicorns. So Vitor identifies as genderqueer and non-binary and is a Black Latin American person. So I can share my screen with the videos here. Oh no, someone's already doing that. So.
Falar sobre ambiente inclusivo ou sobre a construção de um ambiente inclusivo, no final das contas é a gente falar sobre conforto, é sobre criar esse ambiente que seja confortável para toda e qualquer pessoa. Quando a gente fala sobre isso, a gente tem uma relação de ganha-ganha. É uma relação que a corporação, a organização, ela ganha muito com as entregas desse profissional. Quando a gente se sente confortável na nossa própria pele, a gente não precisa ter muitas preocupações com a forma como eu vou falar, o jeito que eu vou caminhar, se eu vou ser julgado por isso. E eu consigo realmente focar naquilo que eu preciso entregar. Por conta disso, essas entregas acabam sendo muito mais valiosas, elas acabam sendo de muito mais valor para a companhia. E quando a gente olha, pelo lado do colaborador dessas pessoas, né, o nosso lado, a gente se sente muito mais confortável e tem uma sensação de bem-estar muito grande. Trazendo um pouquinho de informações específicas sobre a comunidade LGBTQIAP+, quando eu fui líder de um site, de uma organização, para esse público, a gente fez várias ações afirmativas justamente para conseguir fazer esse acolhimento. E uma dessas experiências a gente acabou notando a nossa necessidade não somente do acolhimento a essas pessoas que fazem parte da comunidade, né, que são gays, lésbicas, trans, mas também de familiares. Nós passamos por um momento educativo muito grande e muitas pessoas começaram a nos procurar para falar sobre isso. Como que eu lido dentro da minha casa? Como que eu faço para acolher? Como que eu falo? Quais são os termos corretos? Então a gente notou também essa necessidade de trazer esse acolhimento para todas as pessoas, não somente para a comunidade LGBTQIAP+. É muito interessante a gente traçar essa linha e que é muito tênue entre o educativo e o punitivo. E uma vez que eu tenho todas as informações, que eu passei as informações, que eu cumpri com o meu papel educativo, aí sim eu consigo tratar estratégias punitivas para isso. Então nós tivemos um segundo momento de, por exemplo, denuncie sobre isso. É importante que as organizações também tenham políticas punitivas para que essas pessoas se sintam seguras do lugar onde elas estão e saibam que se algo acontecer, vai ter uma punição sobre isso, alguém vai olhar para isso, elas não estarão sozinhas. Isso é extremamente importante quanto companhia. Agora falando um pouquinho sobre interseccionalidade, que é uma dessas pautas que a gente tem aqui hoje para discutir, queria contar um pouco sobre a minha visão, né, sobre isso. É muito interessante que esse termo ele foi primeiramente estabelecido lá em 1989 pela Kimberly Crenshaw e só nesse momento ele está ganhando a visibilidade que ele deveria já ter tido. É interessante também porque muitas pessoas elas trazem uma visão da interseccionalidade como se fosse um grupo, novos grupos surgindo. Então agora eu não tenho só o gay ou a lésbica, agora eu vou ter o gay negro, a lésbica negra, e com isso eu crio outros grupos. Apesar de ser importante eu entender todas essas situações, a interseccionalidade ela não vem com o intuito de fazer mais divisões, ela vem com o intuito realmente de costurar tudo isso e de trazer essa visão que permeia todos os grupos. A gente se conecta pelas nossas semelhanças e a interseccionalidade ela vem também com esse papel de criar uma conexão entre os seres humanos e suas especificidades. Falando um pouquinho sobre os nossos momentos de sociedade, ao longo da década de 80 e de 90, a gente passou por um momento de desmonstrificação da comunidade, né, de todos os grupos minorizados. E com isso, também pelo boom da AIDS, né, por esse estouro da AIDS no mundo. Logo depois, nos anos 2000 e 2010, essas outras 2 décadas, nós tivemos um processo muito interessante de respeito, que foi falado muito sobre respeito. Entretanto, quando eu falo sobre respeito, né, respeite a minha diferença, eu também tenho um ar conotativo de colocar a mão no peito do próximo e falar eu te respeito e você precisa me respeitar. Entretanto, tem essa questão de eu fico no meu lugar, você fica no seu lugar. E isso cria uma barreira. Passando para agora, a partir de 2020, a gente vem com um olhar muito mais da interseccionalidade. Então, é justamente esse ponto. Eu não respeito mais a diferença, eu supero essa diferença. E a interseccionalidade, ela vem com esse papel de estabelecer uma ponte que me conecte ao próximo. Então esse é um novo momento de sociedade que a interseccionalidade vem justamente para selar o que a gente vive.
Oi, pessoal, tudo bem? Hoje eu vim aqui dar um pouquinho do meu depoimento sobre a minha experiência, de como é pensar, né, essa minha trajetória profissional, aí, a partir da perspectiva da interseccionalidade. Tem um ponto da minha vida que ela é super importante, que eu acho que ela marca muito bem a perspectiva da interseccionalidade. A vida inteira, desde os meus 6 anos de idade, as pessoas diriam que ou eu ia ser prostituta ou eu ia ser cabeleireira. E nada contra essas profissões. Eu acredito que qualquer profissão é qualquer profissão. E ela é importante e tem seu valor. Mas o único problema de pensar isso é que só essas profissões elas acabam delimitando as nossas possibilidades. E é como se as pessoas dissessem para a gente quais são os nossos lugares. E aí eu fui entendendo que, bem, não eram muito as pessoas que deveriam determinar os meus lugares. Mas até então eu não tinha uma perspectiva interseccional do porquê que só essas duas profissões me eram colocadas como possibilidades. E eu cresci a vida inteira colocando essas duas profissões que as pessoas me diziam desde os meus 6 anos de idade na caixinha do gênero. E aí, um belo dia, quando eu entrei na minha graduação em psicologia, comecei a estudar questões de gênero, pauta racial e tantas outras pautas importantes no tema da diversidade e inclusão, eu entendi que aquelas duas profissões, cabeleireiro ou prostituta, era porque eu não era só porque eu era gay ou porque eu era uma gay afeminada na época, mas porque eu era gay, eu era uma criança gay e preta. Então, talvez se eu fosse uma criança gay branca, eu fosse a designer de interiores, eu poderia ser a decoradora, eu poderia ser a estilista. Então, eu entendi naquele exato momento como a minha raça estava articulada com a minha questão de gênero e a minha orientação sexual. Eu acho que esse talvez seja o exemplo mais significativo que eu trouxe para a minha vida para pensar em interseccionalidade. E foi aí que eu tive um boom do quanto interseccionalidade é importante e necessária para nós entendermos que os sistemas de opressão para algumas pessoas vão ser mais acentuados do que para outras pessoas. E deste lugar, como uma profissional hoje que trabalho em diversidade e inclusão, já saí na Forbes, na revista Exame, então, assim, me queriam em um lugar, eu consegui alcançar vários outros. Eu comecei também a pensar qual habilidades, qual eram coisas importantes que me ajudaram a chegar neste momento. Eu não cheguei aqui sozinho, eu cheguei com muitas pessoas me apoiando. Então, talvez uma dica super importante e necessária, e uma forma de empoderar as nossas carreiras e de nos encorajar, é de como nós construímos uma rede que vai nos apoiar, uma rede que vai dizer assim, nossa, você pode ser bem mais do que os lugares que querem lhe colocar, os lugares que querem determinar a sua existência. Eu acho que além da rede, é como a gente constrói uma boa narrativa sobre nós mesmos, no sentido de nos autoconhecer. No momento que eu passei a entender quem eu era, das minhas competências, das minhas habilidades, da minha narrativa de vida e do quão ela é importante e significativa, eu comecei a entender que as pessoas não podiam delimitar os meus lugares e que eu era muito mais do que a expectativa social das pessoas. Eu mesmo era responsável por pensar quem eu queria ser no futuro. Então, chegar aqui até esse momento me faz acreditar que um dos pontos talvez mais importantes de aprendizado e de coisas que eu considero necessárias é a capacidade de acreditar em si mesmo e a importância de ter uma rede que vai te ajudar a caminhar e a se mover coletivamente.
Wow. So I'll first like to thank Paul and Vitor for such powerful testimonials. You can see that how it's important to talk about diversity and inclusion, and especially intersectionality. And one thing that really touched me from Vitor's speech is when they say that because they grew up as Black and queer person, people will always be telling them that they would either be a prostitute or a hairdresser. And it was only after that when they felt safe enough to maybe question these concepts in their heads and get to know their place in society, in the workplace, that they felt that they were powerful enough to be so much more. So this is why I think that this is a two-way street. We are talking about diversity and inclusion in the workplace, but we also need to empower those intersectional talents that we have to make them see and maybe deconstruct these things that society kept telling them all their lives, that they were not good enough because they were members of those marginalized groups. So again, shout out to Vitor and Paulo. Those are really powerful testimonials. And let's talk about this now. So Luanda, on the videos, what do you think can be done to raise awareness about intersectionality that can affect LGBT plus people in the workplace?
Such as the demonstration that any analysis of diversity and inclusion must be performed with an intersectional method. On the matter of sexual and gender diversity, it was very clear that the market welcomes white men, that being when it does welcome these people at all. It's very clear too how much access is rendered by sexual and gender issues alone, and how the difference depends when race is put into account. Sorry. 92% of the almost 1,600 people interviewed in the Latin American survey self-proclaimed themselves as white. These are clips that depict the vulnerability of these people. This research came to the demonstration in a quantitative way that access to the labor market and the development of a solid business in the construction of Latin American societies are even more complicated for LGBTQIA human and Black people. The exclusion of Black population and the human in this space, as demonstrated when we analyze it under a capitalist consumer-driven society, and defends the place that these people will go. These are aggressions that can be pointed out in all social classes because they are legitimated by society in general. Something that we've talked about for a long time in this very exposed is that due to this series of factors combining these discriminations in working environments in these employers' duty, it is not possible to expect that ethical person within a toxic work environment expose themselves, taking the risk of being ethical again and even losing their job, which is their labor rule. That is why it's important for the organizations and institutions to be increasingly more responsible, diligent, and attentive, acting care, promoting debates, create safe channels for reporting so that the space are really safe for everyone. It is also very important to highlight that insertion policies with training of personnel so that a health work environment is created, spaces for the dialogue and safe listening, all to keep these people in the structures.
Great. So now back to Laura. Laura, so what are the main strategies to diminish discrimination and increase workplace inclusion and help companies put into practice their commitments related to human rights and effectively empower our diverse talents?
Thank you for the question. I think that before I talk about the strategies, I will explain why we decided, when actually we decided to work with intersectionality at Matos Filho. So I've been working as the head of diversity and inclusion since 2016. And in 2018, we did a diversity census. And in this diversity census, a few things showed up. At this time, we didn't have many Black employees as lawyers, which is our main public. And all of them, without any action from the firm, were men. So we realized that Black women were not able to join us organically. We needed to do something to make them be part of our teams. The second thing is that it showed up in our diversity census that we had a proportion of lesbians that were much bigger, that was much bigger than we expected and that we knew about it, which showed us that women who were lesbians were not feeling safe enough to come out. So this made me think about the reasons why this was happening. You know, we had many gay men feeling safe enough to come out and to join our ERG, as well as we had many white women as partners of the firm. So why was this happening? And we realized it was about intersectionality. It was about multiple discriminations. So law firms are traditionally male, white, and elitist institutions, and heteronormative institutions, mainly this traditional group that is in power. So in order to promote people to work as lawyers with us and to make this environment safe enough for all identities, we need to educate our people. So the first thing we did was to have events. No, actually, we did something later, but which was really important. So last year, 2020, we created a commission, a diversity and inclusion commission, which Fred is part of, and that has a group of members from the different ERG groups thinking about three main topics, and one of them is intersectionality. So we decided to look strategically to intersectionality and how we could promote this in our firm. So now we have a few ways of calling attention to intersectionality and making sure that everybody knows the importance of being aware of it. So the first thing we did was events. We promoted a few events on the topic. We had one about women in leadership positions with a lesbian woman, with a mother, with a Black woman, with a woman with a disability, and a religious woman. So we had the 5 main pillars of our program represented, and they discussed the difficulties they face in the workplace. Then we had an event about homosexual parenthood, in which we discussed the family concept, the different formats of families, and we had a lesbian couple coming to talk about their own experience. We also had a lecture. So Matos Filho is a sponsor of the São Paulo Art Museum, which is the biggest collection of art in Latin America. And they had an exhibition about sexuality, and we decided to have a course about sexuality history and art for our groups. So this was made together between the LGBT plus ERG and the Women and Gender ERG. We also had book debates. So I think that book debates and movie debates are really good to involve people who are not into that topic. So we discussed, for instance, Angela Davis' book on gender, race, and class, which was really, really interesting. We had a lot of people who usually don't come to D&I events coming to discuss this book. We also had a movie debate, among others, one which is about a movie called The Way He Looks, which is a Brazilian movie about a blind gay boy in Brazil. And we also had many colleagues who usually don't come to D&I events coming to discuss such movie. We did some content production. So we did 2 podcasts, one on lesbian visibility and another one about culture and Black women. And we produced an infographic on sexual and reproductive rights, together of the LGBT plus ERG and women and gender ERG. So I guess these are strategies that require the participation of our professionals to produce them, both the infographic, the movie debates, book debates, podcasts. These are all events that need to count on the participation of professionals who get more aware of the intersectionality approach we have in our D&I program. And also we had these events for those who are more interested in the topic and that would come to discuss with experts on intersectionality approaches. So I guess these were the strategies we used, and which have been quite successful, I have to say. So these are
I'm not
our
completely
suggestions.
unbiased about it, but I think we have been successful about it. So I'm looking at the chat here. Someone, Melissa, was asking for maybe an accessible version, and CV already responded that there's a glitch on our subtitles, but I think this will address other people's comments that they're asking for the content that we have submitted here today. So maybe we can put the slides on the files tab of the panel so they can download it and review it afterwards. Or and even maybe the video of the testimonials maybe uploaded on YouTube so people can rewatch it. I think this is something that we can do too, right?
As well as the infographic, we have it translated into English, the sexual and reproductive rights infographic, so we can upload there.
Awesome. And another question from Rachel is the book title of Angela Davis. That's Women, Race, and Class. Someone responded. That's it, right?
It's women, race, and class, or gender, race, and class. Not sure if it's women or gender.
Gender. Okay, so we'll double check and also maybe put it on the slides so people can, if they want, read it. So let's jump in for the questions for our final 8 minutes here. It's all great to hear. So there's one that's considering what have been discussed. What is the leadership role in the promotion of a diversified and inclusive workplace environment that is inclusive to all LGBT plus professionals? I'll take this one if you don't mind.
Go for it.
Being in a leadership role, I think that we should be mindful that even if we don't want, we lead by example. So especially when we have a great team that we're leading, we should know that every aspect of what we say and what we do will be maybe replicated or taken into account. So it's good to maybe set the example, talk about it. Again, as we've been saying here for the last 58 minutes or so, information is paramount to promote diversity and inclusion. So this is one thing that you can do. Also, maybe be more engaged in mentorship of diverse talents. And I have like something that happened to me last week, which I think it was something that I did naturally, but then I was made aware that it made a huge impact on someone that I've been mentoring. So I've been mentoring this black talent that he joined the firm through our racial inclusion program. So I have been mentoring him for like over a year and a half now, but all virtually. So luckily enough, I was in São Paulo last week and was in our headquarters there. I wanted to check what they have done. We've done some renovations there, so I just wanted to check. And I ran into him, and we started talking. I said, "Do you want to have lunch?" And I was gonna have lunch with a partner and 3 other senior associates of the firm. So he joined us, and he's an intern. So he was sitting there like in the big grown-up table, and that was something I did naturally. And then afterwards, he texted me, said like, "Oh my God, I just sat on my table. I can't believe this just happened. I had lunch with a partner and senior associates. That never happened to me before." And it was so natural to him, and it made him feel included in that. So I think that after that lunch, he felt even a greater part of the firm. And this is something that we can do with no greater effort. It's just be mindful of the little things that we can do through our days and during our work ethic that could change people's lives and maybe empower them. So this is one thing. So a couple of other questions. So maybe this one to Luanda. So what are the main tips you would give to human resources professionals to be more aware and sensitive to people who experience the overlap of more than one discrimination?
When we talk about the health of work environments and combating discrimination in this space, we need to think that companies are not isolated islands of societies. They are intimately and independently connected, and advances in with the advances in technology today, they are instantly judged by their actions, which makes them need to think about it, not just to comply with existing regulatory requirements. Sorry, everybody needs to assume a place of proactivity and social and collect principles and interests. Therefore, it's necessary to have coherence between speech and practice. And even though we're talking about humanities, within the constructions of societies that we have, which is with so discriminatory patterns, this change being structural, with the current compositions of structural should not be carried or without the rating of specialized consultants. Sorry.
Awesome.
Here.
I think we have time for maybe one last one. So it is unarguably that such structural violence also affects work relationship and performance. Therefore, how can allies, and this goes to Laura, which is like one of the greatest allies that I know. So how can allies of the LGBT plus community can help to promote a more welcoming workplace environment?
Well, I think that as an ally, I would say that the most important thing is to have empathy, is to try to look to the road in someone's eyes, with someone's eyes, or with someone's shoes. I don't know whether it applies, but I think that having empathy and looking to the other in a way that how it feels for them would be something really important. But more than that is to be sure about the privileges we have. So being an heterosexual woman, I feel like I have a privilege for that, and that as so I should join forces against LGBT phobia. And that's important because I don't think that LGBT phobia is a problem just for LGBT plus people. It's a problem for our society and affects me in the same way. So, no, not in the same way, in a different way, but it also affects me. It's also a problem for me. So as an ally, I think that we should join forces, knowing our privilege, having a good hearing of people's experience so we can learn with them. Since we don't feel the discrimination, we need to hear people who feel the discrimination and learn with them. And at last, we should raise our voices. So if we see something, no matter where we are, in our families, in our workplace, in the streets, we should say something. We cannot be silent about discrimination. So we are not allies only at the workplace. We are allies in general. And at last, I would say that being an ally is something that we are acknowledged as an ally by people who suffer discrimination. So in terms of racial discrimination, I heard something which is really interesting, which is self-declared allies usually don't do much about the causes that they are an ally of, because it's quite comfortable to say, you know, me, Laura, I'm an ally. That makes me comfortable and not really a protagonist of this this fight. So actually, I shouldn't be a protagonist, but I'm not a part of this fight. So, so just to be more succinct. So I think an ally needs to be to have empathy. I think an ally should acknowledge its privilege, should learn about the experiences of others who suffer discrimination, leave the space for people to be protagonists, but support people who suffer the discrimination. So LGBT people are the protagonists of this fight, but I need to support them, not only in my workplace, but also everywhere, you know, and not feel comfortable enough to be an ally and that's it. I'm an ally and, you know, that's enough. We need to be allies all the time, and we need to be recognized as an ally by others, not self-declare ourselves as allies.
Yes.
Is that good?
Be empathic, always empathic.
Always.
You don't have to take on a leading role on the fight or against discrimination, but know that by speaking out, you are empowering those diverse talents around you to also speak up, because they know that they'll have your support. So this is awesome. So I don't want to jump into the Thursday plenaries, so we might as well close here. So I just wanted to thank Luanda and Laura for such insightful moments here, and everyone who stayed at this very last minute and have made questions and so on and so forth. I've been checking on the chat here. Everyone really loved what you said. So I think we did a great job. So thank you, Laura and Luanda again, and Vitor and Paulo for their testimonials. If you want to say anything to close, I think we have a couple of more minutes, and that's it.
I just want to thank you, Fred, for this great event. It was a pleasure to be here to share a little bit of our experience at Matos Filho. And also thanks Luanda and Paulo and Vitor and CV from Altanico. Thank you.
Fred, Laura, thank you very much, and an honor for me to participate in this debate alongside you. Thank you for everyone who accompany us. May we continue to work together for inclusion until later. See you.
So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you on a later time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.